One of the keys to success for the Islanders down the stretch is getting balanced scoring. We'll talk about how they've gotten it since Patrick Roy put together the super line of Brock, Bo, and Barzal. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. We've got a lot to discuss on today's show, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, and we will get to a mailbag question a little bit later on in the show, please send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. So, a couple of weeks ago, Patrick Roy announced some changes to the line combinations. And one thing he did was put three centers all on the Islanders' top line. And it's also the Islanders' three most dangerous offensive players. So Bo Horvat, a natural center, is the center. Brock Nelson, a natural center, is playing left wing, and Mathew Barzal, a natural center, is on the right side. And admittedly, this trio is kind of like putting all your eggs in one basket. And yet it hasn't quite been that way. And I will discuss a few reasons why this trio has worked so well. Obviously, Bo, Barzal, and Brock together are an effective trio. Barzal remains the puck movement guy, the passer. Nelson and Horvat both have really good shots. This trio has a little chemistry. It works well. Then you had the other three lines. And everydayers will recall that one of my concerns was, oh my gosh, will they get enough scoring from the bottom nine forwards in this instance? And so far, the answer has been yes. And the Islanders went on that 6-game winning streak. Yeah, it was snapped in LA Monday night. And, look, we knew they weren't going to win them all. But even so, here are some of the reasons that this bottom nine has worked. Number one is that opposing teams are always going to line up their best checking units against Bo, Brock, and Barzal. And when you're trying to, do that, it does open up some additional opportunities for other players who are not going to be going up against those best defensive pair, top shutdown forward line. You're going to see lesser competition or lesser opposition for the bottom nine. Then you get to the fact that Kyle Palmieri has been on a hot streak lately. And look, we all know Palms is a streaky player, but when he's hot, and he usually is hot for somewhere between, 3, 4, 5, sometimes as many as 7 games. But when he's riding a hot streak, Palmieri is capable of being a difference maker on this team. Now, he has 20 goals. Great to see him cross that threshold. He may even be able to get to 25, maybe even 27 or so before the season is over, depending on if he continues this hot streak or has another hot streak. But getting Palmieri hot was very, very important for the second line. And I think there is a little bit of chemistry between Palms and Anders Lee, which helps as well. Then you have the third line. And first of all, I think having Pierre Engvall and Simon Holmstrom, both Swedes, playing together stylistically, I think that has worked. And Engvall, over the last 3 or 4 games, has played better. I'm still not convinced he's worth the 7-year deal that he signed with the Islanders, but I am encouraged by his recent play. And I think having Engvall on the third line is kind of where he belongs in the lineup. I think that's where his talents are best suited. And then you add the fact that Casey Cizikas moving up to the third line center is more or less what he's capable of doing that. And I think he's fit in well. And then the fact that Cizikas, Engvall, and Holmstrom, Engvall and Holmstrom are among the 2 faster forwards on this Islanders roster. And Cizikas, while he's not a burner, certainly possesses the ability to give you some quick bursts of speed so that when he needs to, he can keep up or at least keep in the play with Engvall and Holmstrom. Now, look, I'm not expecting consistent production from this trio. But is Casey Cizikas, if he were a third-line guy, capable of 10 to 15 goals over the course of a season? I think he is. I think Pierre Engvall can also give you 10 to 15 goals over a season. And Simon Holmstrom probably as well. So, again, it's not the most productive unit, but they are starting to develop chemistry. And the fact that their styles have meshed well is definitely helpful. And then the other factor that has allowed for this line change to be successful, in my mind, is the emergence of Kyle McLean. Yeah, assistant coach's son, right? Okay. He has earned a spot in the regular lineup. And yeah, Matt Martin in and out of the lineup now. He's dealing with an injury day to day. Cal Clutterbuck, not always able to do what he did his whole career. He's slowing down a little, but still a useful fourth line player. And I think Kyle McLean has given that fourth line a little bit more juice, and he's provided perhaps a little more offense than anybody really expected from him. So overall, the bottom 3 lines since Patrick Waugh put Bo, Brock, and Barzal together have been a pleasant surprise. Now, is this sustainable? Can Kyle Palmieri and or Anders Lee stay hot and keep that second line productive? Can the third line pitch in enough? Because none of them are natural goal scorers. Can Kyle McLean be consistent enough to provide a little juice to the fourth line for the final 18 games? And, whether it's Martin or Fashing or Clutterbuck or whoever else they may insert into the lineup, can the fourth line be effective now that you've broken up the identity line? The answers to these questions in the final 18 games will be one very big key to answering the question, will the Islanders make the playoffs or not? And I think, as I said when Patrick Waugh made the move, it's a gamble. Will it pay off? So far, the answer has been yes. Now we're going to find out if it's sustainable. And quite honestly, obviously, Islander fans are hoping that it is. We have got more to get to on today's show. We will talk a little bit about a player who joined the Islanders this year, is going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, answering one of your mailbag questions about his future. We'll have our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders, and then we will have our Islanders birthday of the day, a defenseman who played with the Islanders for one season in the early 90s. He was a big stay-at-home kind of defenseman. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Ibotta. Grocery bills are so expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Ibotta is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 a year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, so you can buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you've been dying to go to, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much, but with Ibotta, just add your offers in the app, upload your receipt, and you get real cash that you can cash out to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONNHL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. So we're going to go to the mailbag for this one. And Siggy from Long Island asks the question, should the Islanders re-sign Mike Reilly? And Siggy, thank you so much for the question. And I did promise you a shout out. So this is your shout out right now. And appreciate the question because I do think it's a good one. And look, Mike Reilly, as of right now, he's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. The Islanders claimed him. They made a waivers claim, picked him up. He's 30 years old, and he earned $1 million this season. So $1 million in cap hit, and he will turn 31 over the summer. He's a left-handed defenseman, 6'1", 196 pounds. This year, in 41 games with the Islanders, which, by the way, is exactly half a season, 4 goals, 12 assists, 16 points. He's a -1. In my opinion, you can do a lot worse, really, than Mike Reilly. He gives you a little offense. If you were to tell me that the Islanders had a third pair defenseman, and that's what Reilly is, with on pace for 32 points, I would take that. In fact, there are a lot of second pair defensemen who are not going to give you 32 points over an 82-game season. Reilly has been healthy, so that's encouraging. He's a good passer, and he gives the offense a little bit more of a boost overall that I like. You saw that long stretch pass a couple of games ago against Anaheim that sent Kyle Palmieri in on a breakaway, and he was able to score. That was a pass by Mike Reilly. I don't think he would cost all that much. And remember, Sebastian Aho is also an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. I think it's very possible that Aho is not re-signed by the Islanders. I would not expect Lou Lamoriello to re-sign both Aho and Reilly. And the question becomes, who fits into the team better? I think Reilly is better defensively than Aho, not substantially, but enough. He's giving the Islanders on average 16 minutes, 36 seconds per game. He can kill penalties. He can give you some time on that second power play unit. And overall, I think he is a solid third pair defenseman. And even if he's not your, 5 or 6, he's a great 7. And part of the reason for this, obviously another player in that same mix for a bottom pair defense position next year, assuming they don't sign anybody else. The next guy up is Samuel Bolduc. And, if Bolduc is your 5 or 6 and Reilly is your 7, the advantage to that is you don't have to worry about Reilly not developing because he's not playing. One of the things I don't like about Bolduc being in the press box, he's not playing in Bridgeport. He's not playing a lot in the NHL. It stalls his development. But if Reilly is your 7 and he's going to play 20, 30 games, depending on injuries, maybe more, he's reliable, he's consistent, and he's not going to cost you much, and you're not hurting Mike Reilly's development by keeping him in the press box for some games or even most games. Overall, I think it's a solid guy to have around. So to me, I would be in favor of bringing back Mike Reilly, assuming he's making, matching that $1 million cap hit or making less than that. Whatever it takes, really. But let's say he's, 1.5 or less. I think it's a solid veteran defenseman to have around. Now, he's a left shot, maybe right shots are more in demand these days. But either way, having Mike Reilly available to me, it's a good value pickup. But here's my warning, okay? Memo to Lou Lamoriello. You do not sign Mike Reilly to a long-term deal. You give him a 1-year deal, maybe if you want to be generous, a 2-year deal. You don't give him a no-trade clause. Mike Reilly is a solid depth player, but he is not the kind of guy you sign to a long-term deal. And I know Lou loves to do that to his 30-something veterans. If Lou does that, if this becomes Scott Mayfield or Pierre Engvall 2.0, then that's a mistake. So bring back Mike Reilly? Absolutely. I think it would be wise, again, depending on what happens with Aho, what happens with Bolduc, but I think it's definitely within the cards to bring him back. But don't overdo it. Make it reasonable. And I think he could fit in very nicely with this team as a 5, 6, 7 defenseman to give the team some quality depth, even if he doesn't play every game, and be a great insurance policy in case of injury. So, Siggy, thank you for the email and for the question, and I hope I've answered your question sufficiently. We have got more to get to on today's show. We have our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders. Another pretty good weekend for Bridgeport. We'll talk about that. Plus, we will have our Islanders birthday of the day. So all that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. Do you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started at robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of the first quarter of 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from date of first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. It's a registered broker-dealer. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Time for our weekly farm report as we talk all things Bridgeport Islanders. 3 games last weekend for Bridgeport. Started out on Friday when Bridgeport faced the Springfield Thunderbirds on the road. And in this one, the Islanders get a 4-2 win over Springfield. Rick Kowalski winning his 300th career AHL game, making him only the 26th head coach in the history of the league to do that. And this is the 5th straight win over Springfield for the Bridgeport Islanders. Goals by William Dufour, Tice Thompson, Grant Hutton, and Maggio. Ken Appleby, 18 saves. The Hutton goal, by the way, a shorty. That was the game winner, Maggio's goal, an empty netter. He now has goals in 3 straight games. So Bridgeport on their way. Then on Saturday, Islanders facing the Hartford Wolfpack. This game goes to a shootout. And who do you think gets the highlight reel game winner? Yes, Ruslan Iskhakov. He gets the winner in the shootout, and Bridgeport beats Hartford by a score of 3-2. 4th straight win, which is the club's longest winning streak of the year. William Dufour and Brian Pino scoring during regulation, and they had also an assist. Dufour now has points in 4 straight games. That's 3 goals, 2 assists. Jakub Skarek, 24 saves to earn his 6th win of the year. And the Islanders outshooting Hartford 31-26. That's 8 straight games that the Islanders outshot their opponents. But then on Sunday, the winning streak ends. The Islanders end up losing to the Lehigh Valley Phantoms by a score of 4-3. 2 assists for Dennis Chalowski in this one. Jeff Kubiak, Tice Thompson, and Dalen Kufler all score. Brian Pino does get an assist, so he now has a point in 4 straight games. 30 saves for Henrik Tikkanen. But the Islanders were outshot 34-32. So that ended the winning streak, but still definitely a better performance by Bridgeport over the, let's say, the last 10 games. Ruslan Iskhakov reaches the 40-point plateau, 15 goals, 25 helpers. He leads the team in both of those stats, followed by Otto Koivula with 30 points, Brian Pino with 24, Dennis Chalowski leading all defensemen with 24, and then Robin Salo with 22. Mathew Maggio, 13 goals. He and William Dufour both tied in that category. So again, we're seeing a little bit better play, I'd say, over the last 3 or 4 weeks by Bridgeport. Jakub Skarek, 6-18 and 5, a 3.16 goals against, and an 8.89 save percentage. Looking at the standings, though, the Islanders still 10 points behind Lehigh Valley in the fight for that last playoff spot in the Atlantic Division. and they have 15 games left. Lehigh Valley does have a couple of games in hand, so that is obviously going to be an uphill climb for the Bridgeport Islanders if they hope to make the playoffs. Now, the Islanders start a lengthy road trip. In fact, it is a 5-game road trip. 3 of those games will be this week. Tonight, it is a game at the Laval Rocket. That's a 7 o'clock Eastern time start. Then Friday night, again in Laval against the Rocket. That's another 7 o'clock Eastern time start. And then Saturday, March 16th, the Belleville Senators will host the Bridgeport Islanders. Again, a 7 o'clock Eastern time start. You could watch all 3 of these games on AHL TV. And if you want to catch some of the Islanders' future stars like Ruslan Iskhakov, Matt Maggio, or William Dufour, before they reach the island, head on up to Bridgeport for a home game. They still have a few left, and you can see some of those stars playing right now and see what they could do. And boy, Iskhakov, that shootout goal, that was magical. And watching him do his thing, really great. Again, what he does without the puck, or what he doesn't do without the puck, is what's keeping him from being NHL ready, according to most scouts and the Islanders organization. We'll see if he gets a chance for at least a cameo later in the season, especially, once the AHL season is over, maybe we see him in the NHL for the last few games. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. We're a couple of days early on this one, but March 15th will be the 63rd birthday of former Islanders defenseman Craig Ludwig. Ludwig, a native of Rhinelander, Wisconsin, a 3rd-round pick of the Montreal Canadiens. In 1980, spent 3 years at the University of North Dakota before joining the Habs for the 82-83 season, and joined the Islanders in 1990-91. That was his one season on the island, played 75 games, had a goal, 9 points, and 77 penalty minutes. Then went on to play for the Minnesota North Stars, the Dallas Stars, and retired after the 98-99 season. Not a big goal scorer, but he was a defensive defenseman, and at 6'3", 210, you could understand why. Played 1,256 NHL games, 38 goals, 222 points, and 1,437 penalty minutes. Add 177 playoff games, 4 goals, 28 points, 244 penalty minutes. So, Ludwig, a 2-time Stanley Cup winner, certainly had his share. His best game as an Islander, February 24th, 1991, at the old Spectrum in Philadelphia. Jeff Hackett, the Islanders goalie, Ron Hextall, a future Islander, was in goal for Philly. And in this game, it was a back and forth affair, but Craig Ludwig scored his only goal as an Islander, his only goal of that season, the only assist to Brent Sutter. That made it 4-3 with a little less than 4 minutes left, but unfortunately, that's how the game ended. Ludwig had the goal. He was a +1, 4 penalty minutes, and 4 shots on goal in this game. So Craig Ludwig is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Thanks again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day, everydayers. Tomorrow on the show, we will have a full preview of the Islanders game in Buffalo tomorrow night against the Sabres. Plus, hopefully, we'll have an injury update or 2. We'll see if Matt Martin will be available to return to the lineup. We'll keep you up to date on that as soon as we hear something. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.